My name is Sydney Asubo. I'm the Executive Director of the Financial Intelligence Authority. Here at the FIA, because of the circumstances currently we're living in, we observe all the standard operating procedures that have been put in place, including social distancing and wearing the masks and sanitizing. But because we are properly social distanced, allow me to remove my mask so that you can hear me clearly. Now, the journey of the FIA it's a relatively short one. We have been in existence for 6 years now. We came into being on 1st January 2014. The authority is established under the Anti-Money Laundering Act of 2013, which has also been amended. It was amended in 2017. We established as a body corporate whose main core mandate is to fight money laundering. But we also have additional responsibilities, including the combating terrorism financing and combating the proliferation of weapons of mass destruction. Now, to achieve that mandate, the law in section 18, 19, and 20 gives us various powers. So all those powers are intended to make us achieve the objectives. Now, the way the organization is structured, we have a board that is responsible for policy direction. The board is currently chaired by Governor Emeritus Leo Kibirango, and I am the executive director. The board comprises of 5 members, including the chairman. The 6th member is the executive director, who is an ex officio member. The other board members. Now, before we go to the current board, the pioneer board, since we're talking about the journey of the FIA, the pioneer board Mr. Chairman was Mr. Governor Kibirango. The other 4 board members were Mr. Patrick Ochailap, Mrs. Justine Bajenda, Ms. Patricia Mutesi, and Ms. AIGP, Assistant Inspector General of Police, Grace Akulu, and myself as the ex-official. So this initial board came into being in 2015. The board serves for 3 years, and they serve their 3 years until 2018. Now, the current board is the second board. The membership is the same, except that Mr. Titus Mulindwa has now replaced Mrs. Justine Bajenda on the board, but the rest of the membership is the same. So the board provides policy guidance to the management and is responsible for all policy matters of the authority. So myself as the ED, I lead the management team. My deputy is Mr. Michael Olupot, Tukei. The law requires that we are appointed by the Minister of Finance on recommendation of the board and with approval of Parliament. So we went through that process and were appointed in 2015. We served our first term. Now I'm happy to report that myself and Mr. Tukei, we are now serving our second and final term. So for another 3 or so years, we shall be at the helm of the organization. We're assisted by a top management team made up of directors and managers, and then also the other who head the various departments in the organization. Now, we also, at the moment, in addition to my responsibilities at the FIA, Uganda is the current chairman of the Eastern and Southern Africa Anti-Money Laundering Group. So at present, I'm the chairman. On behalf of Uganda, the chairman of the task force of senior officials, and Honorable Matia Kasaiji is the president of the Council of Ministers of SMLAG, which is the regional group to which all money laundering issues at a regional level are addressed. And the Council of Ministers is made up of the 18 member countries that constitute SMLAG, or Eastern and Southern Africa Anti-Money Laundering Group. So that gives the background to the establishment, the powers and functions of the Financial Intelligence Authority. Now, in terms of the rationale, the reasons behind creation of this authority, it is really a long story, but we, as you all know, we are part of the global community. Money laundering and terrorism financing and fighting and proliferation of weapons of mass destruction, these three issues that have cross-cutting across the globe. So to successfully fight these three vices, there must be collaboration at a regional and global level. Now, at the top level, the widely accepted organ, that is, or international body responsible for setting the pace, the policies and guidelines, is called the Financial Action Task Force. The headquarters are in Paris. Now, it has 36 members, including OECD. The only member country in Africa is South Africa. Now, because these issues of a global nature, and because the minimum standards for joining FATF as a member are quite high, the FATF has established what we call the regional FATF-style bodies. We call them FSRBs. So the number of them, the one which Uganda belongs to is called Eastern and Southern Africa Anti-Money Laundering Group. The one I've already alluded to, it has 18 member countries. So we apply the same principles like the FATF. And the cornerstone of this is the 40 recommendations. There are 40 recommendations that have been made, and each country is required to ensure that the 40 recommendations are complied with at a technical level. Then the second area where we're supposed to comply is effectiveness. So once you have put the recommendations, you have translated the 40 recommendations into your national infrastructure through legislation, that is the acts of parliament, and through the regulations and directives, guidelines, and the rest. So that is the technical compliance level. But you're supposed to reduce those into an effective system. So that is they are effective. So those are the two things that FATF looks at. One of the key recommendations is that every country must criminalize money laundering, every country must criminalize terrorism financing, must criminalize the proliferation of weapons of mass destruction. Now, Uganda has criminalized the first two. We're developing legislation to criminalize proliferation financing, but in terms of money laundering, that was criminalized in 2013 when the Anti-Money Laundering Act was passed, and we criminalized terrorism financing in 2015 when the Anti-Terrorism Amendment Act was passed. So those two have been criminalized. Now, the other cardinal requirement for countries is that they must establish financial intelligence units. Now, financial intelligence units is a generic name given across the board. Every country gives its FIU, or financial intelligence unit, a different name. So ours here is called the Financial Intelligence Authority. So that is the background to which why this organization had to be established. So the draft law leading to the establishment of this, that is the Anti-Money Laundering Bill, was first drafted 1999-2000. But it took a while because it was a long journey. This bill was sent to cabinet of Uganda in the year 2000, and then in 2001, and then it was sent to parliament. It was approved by cabinet and sent to parliament in 2009, and it was finally enacted in 2013. But as I've said, it has already been amended once in 2017. The regulations to give effect to the act were passed in 2015. So that is the part with money laundering. While for terrorism financing, we already had a law, the Anti-Terrorism Act of 2002, but it didn't have components of terrorism financing in a manner required by the International TF Convention. So we had to amend the law to introduce terrorism financing as a crime, and this was done in 2015, although there have been subsequent amendments in 2016 and 2017 to enhance the definition of terrorism financing, while the regulations, we put them in place in 2016. So that is the primary legislation now in the country that guides that provides a legal framework for combating money laundering and countering terrorism financing. At an institutional level, because again, within the country, FI can't do it alone. So we have to work hand in hand with the other stakeholders. So we are the primary stakeholder, but our main trade is intelligence. So what we produce is intelligence, and once we have we transform this intelligence into usable or useful information, which we then send to law enforcement agencies. So if it is matters to do with money laundering, we send them to either police, and if it is matters to do within the jurisdiction of the Inspectorate of Government, we send it to the Inspectorate of Government. Then if it is matters to do with terrorism financing, we send to the police, counterterrorism department, or the CID. If they are non-criminal matters, but which require the attention of other administrative organs of government, we send them to them as well. For example, on tax matters, we send to Uganda Revenue Authority. On issues to do with illicit trade in wildlife, we send to Uganda Wildlife Authority. If it is other, so we send the information to the relevant administrative organ in Uganda. So those are our main stakeholders, but we also do supervision of the entities that are described as reporting and accountable persons in the law. So we have to work jointly with the key regulators in this regard. So we have Bank of Uganda that we deal with quite regularly, Insurance Regulatory Authority, the Capital Markets Authority, Uganda Registration Services Bureau, and the new one, our colleagues, Uganda Microfinance Regulatory Authority, Uganda Communications Commission. At the investigative level, we work closely with the Inspectorate of Government, the State House Anti-Corruption Unit, and the Uganda Police, of course. And then at prosecutorial, we deal with the DPP as well as the Inspectorate of Government. At the policy level, our main partners are our supervisors, the Ministry of Finance, Planning and Economic Development, on matters especially of money laundering, but for issues to do with legal reforms and the rest, we work with the Solicitor General's Office in the chambers of the Attorney General. And then when it comes to issues of terrorism financing and proliferation, that is the Ministry of Internal Affairs. So those are the key stakeholders. Now, at a national level, all this coordination is done by the National MLCFT Task Force, the National Anti-Money Laundering / Combating Terrorism Financing Task Force, which is chaired by the Ministry of Finance, and the Secretariat is here at the Financial Intelligence Authority. So we meet quite regularly to discuss issues to set the agenda on this at a national level. So this, we also have international obligations. As I've said already, we're one of the 9 founding members of Eastern and Southern Africa Anti-Money Laundering Group, and we also chair at present the chairmanship or the presidency of the organization alternates on an annual basis. So from December 2020 to September 2021, Uganda will be holding the president and shepherding the organization for that period. So we we have that at a national level, but also at global level, at FI level. We are members of the Egmont Group. Egmont Group is what brings together all the financial intelligence units. We're currently, I think, 168 members. So we're members. We joined in July 2019. We're one of the newest members. And the good news is that in terms of joining from the time of establishment to the time of admission as Egmont members, we're one of the fastest to join. Because when you join, it's not just a member of saying whenever you want to join, because there are certain minimum requirements that you must fulfill before you're allowed to join. And there are three key ones. One is that you must demonstrate that the legal framework that is in place allows you to operate efficiently as an FIU. That, for example, you're independent, you have access to, you control your own funds, you control your own decisions, and things like you're independent in your operational activities, and that there's a legal framework to back that up. Number two, that you're operationally existent, that you conduct what we call operational analysis, and that you conduct what we call strategic analysis. And they have to examine that. So, and then number three, you have to demonstrate the capacity to receive, store, and disseminate information in a secure manner. Because we share information a lot across, within the country, we receive a lot of information and share. And then international, we also receive information either on request or spontaneously from all over the world. So you must demonstrate that you can receive this information in a secure manner, keep it securely, and send it out securely. So we are able to demonstrate all this, and we are then admitted as full members of the Egmont Group. For the 6 years that we have been in existence, we have had a number of achievements, but many of them, but I want to highlight the four major ones. The four major ones. The first one will be, because we are new, we are the pioneers. So the first achievement that I'm proud to talk about is the actual establishment of the authority. Because we didn't exist before. So setting up the organization and making it up and running. So that is the very first one. The second one is the National Risk Assessment, which we conducted in 2016, and the report came out in 2017. It's one of the key documents that every country must have. Every country must understand its risks, money laundering and terrorism financing. So Uganda hadn't done this before. This was the first one, and it will provide the baseline for all future national risk assessments. So it is a document that is on our website, and it's available to members of the public. And Uganda's national risk assessment has been cited across the world as one of the best in terms of the quality of the reporting. The third one will be the mutual evaluation in 2016. Again, every country must subject itself to scrutiny by peers. So this assessment was done. It's a very onerous activity. It was done in 2016, and it was done in 2015, and the report came out in 2016. We didn't score very well in certain areas, and we scored very well in others. For those that we didn't score very well, we received upgrades. There was a reassessment on our request, and we received upgrades in technical compliance ratings in 2018, as well as last year in December 2020. The fourth big achievement I'll talk about is Egmont, joining Egmont. I've already given the background to it. In terms of the challenges that we have faced, obviously there are three. The three major ones. There are many, but I will highlight the three major ones. One is the porous borders. We are required to, there's a requirement of the law that anyone entering and leaving Uganda with 30 million shillings or its equivalent in foreign currency is supposed to declare to customs. And customs is supposed to relay this information to us within 48 hours. But because of the porous nature of Uganda's borders, it's easy for criminals to evade this reporting, because we have many motorable alternatives to enter Uganda, especially by land. This requirement applies at the airport and at the land border. So because of the porous nature, that is a challenge. Number two is the cash economy. Ours is, as you know, it's a largely cash-driven economy, so it is harder to track cash transactions. You imagine if you had your 500 million shillings here and criminal money or dirty money, illicit money, and then you bought land from somebody, there will be no, it will be very hard to track that transaction. So we have proposed to government through the Ministry of Finance to put in place measures in the medium to long term, 5 to 10 years, policies to reduce the amount of cash that is used in the economy and replace it with alternative methods like the electronic options. Then the third one will be the informal nature, because businesses are not formalized, therefore it becomes difficult to track taxes, and if taxes is difficult, then you also can't track who is evading the tax and also the rest. So that is, again, we have also proposed to government through the Ministry of Finance to put in place policies to encourage the formalization of businesses, both small scale and big scale operations. Now, the opportunities, of course, there are many. We have advancements in technology. So the advancements in technology with the promotion of financial inclusion products like mobile money. We now have many virtual options available. The passage recently of the laws to regulate mobile monies and other payment options, that is the National Payments Act, is a very good opportunity. It will provide more opportunities for oversight in the sector. Now, recently, Uganda Parliament passed, and the minister signed the statutory instrument to include virtual asset service providers, and this way you have, of course, the main one people talk about are the crypto currencies, but all virtual asset service providers to be reporting entities under anti-money laundering group, under the Anti-Money Laundering Act. I'm sure you're aware of the outcry we have had in the public, where people have been cheated by companies purporting to be dealers in cryptocurrencies, whereas they are not. So this recent reform in the law now allows FI to provide oversight insofar as the money laundering aspects are concerned. Now, my general advice to the public is that we have seen, because of the COVID situation, we have seen a lot of changes in the way criminals operate. So we have issued an advisory to the public, because there is now increased fraud. Generally speaking, there is increased cyber crime. There's general change there's a change in the behaviors, in the financial sector behaviors, and then also what we call the financial sector volatility, which means that generally the members of the public need to be more alert to telltale signs of fraud, and that's something we can discuss. We can really discuss for hours. But those are the things that we generally want to advise the public. We also have platforms through which they can report to us. We are available on the social media platforms. We're also on our website, where people can bring the information to us, either through our email, those contacts we have provided, email or anonymously, or they can also come here and give us information where they suspect that money laundering activities or terrorism financing activities could be going on. Now, we are aware, for example, that generally speaking, there are significant knowledge gaps about money laundering generally, especially among members of the community. So we are going to have an extensive drive, public awareness drive. It is unfortunately for us that the time we intended to launch this drive coincided with the onset of the COVID, because this is something we wanted to do in the second part of the last financial year, that is January to June of last financial of 2020, but that wasn't possible. So we pushed it to be done in June to December. Again, that wasn't possible. So we have decided to shift it to next financial year, that is 1st July 2021 to 30th June 2022. We want to use that period, hoping that they will have gone back, will be some, that with the vaccines that have been made and manufactured and the rest, that we will have taken hold of the COVID situation that will allow us. But that said, we are still exploring alternative mechanisms of communicating. But we know that those that can be reached using electronic means are limited in number. So this is something that members of the public should be aware of. We're aware that there's a lot of misinformation in the public. So these are things we intend to do as one of the key ways forward. In conclusion, I want to first of all thank our partners, the local partners that I've already mentioned, and also allow me the opportunity to thank our international partners. We work very closely with FATF Secretariat, ICG Secretariat, SMLAG Secretariat. We have also received a lot of support from DFID, especially in carrying out the National Risk Assessment, the Basel Institute, and the Global Center for Cooperative Security, and many other partners that I've not mentioned. I also want to take this opportunity to thank UBC for this program, especially in explaining the journey of FIA to the Ugandan citizenry. I also take this opportunity to invite all nationals of this country to support the FIA in the execution of our mandate. Asante sana.